Centuries ago, one man watched empires rise and fall and realized something no one else would say aloud. That morality was fragile. That power belonged not to the righteous, but to the strategic. And that truth itself could be bent, if you understood the minds of men. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli, a thinker so dangerous that the powerful tried to erase him. But ideas cannot die. They only change shape, and today his words echo again, because the world has built a new empire, one greater than kings, armies, or thrones, the empire of perception. You don't live in nations anymore. You live inside systems of influence, feeds, narratives, algorithms. In Machiavelli's time, the ruler controlled the city. Today, the ruler controls the story. And if you control the story, you control the mind. This is The Prince, rewritten for the modern world, not a manual for tyranny, but a mirror for those who wish to stop being ruled. The New Kingdom. Machiavelli once served Florence, a city of marble walls and whispered politics. Every move was a calculation, every alliance a blade wrapped in silk. But if he walked among us today, he wouldn't study kings or armies. He'd study screens. Because the new Florence is digital, the walls are invisible, the citizens are billions of glowing faces, united not by borders, but by algorithms. We call it connection, but it's control in disguise. In Machiavelli's world, rulers fought to expand their territory. In ours, rulers fight to expand their reach. Likes have replaced loyalty, followers have replaced subjects, and the new empires rise not from conquest, but from influence. Today, whoever controls the narrative controls the mind of the masses, and whoever controls the mind controls the market, the culture, the future. Power has migrated from the sword to the story, and stories now are written by machines that know you better than you know yourself. The Renaissance prince needed spies. The modern prince doesn't. He has data, your desires, your fears, your insecurities, collected, studied, monetized. Each click is a confession, each scroll is a surrender, and the rulers of today don't even need to watch you. They just predict you. They don't need obedience, they need engagement. You don't serve them through labor, you serve them through attention. The more you react, the more they rule. Once, the most dangerous weapon was propaganda. Now, it's personalization. Because propaganda tells everyone the same lie, but personalization tells each person the lie they most want to believe. You are no longer manipulated as a crowd, you're manipulated as an individual, and that's the genius of modern power. It doesn't force, it seduces. Machiavelli would study this world with admiration and horror. He'd see that control no longer requires violence, it requires dopamine. Every like is a microdose of validation, every notification a whisper of belonging. Each one keeps you within reach, obedient, predictable, satisfied enough not to question who's feeding you. The kingdom doesn't look like a prison, it looks like your phone. You carry it willingly, you unlock it daily, and it tracks everything you love. The modern prince doesn't need soldiers. He has psychologists, coders, and storytellers. His army works in silence, designing what you see, measuring how you feel, and feeding you exactly enough illusion to keep you docile. Machiavelli said a ruler must appear virtuous. The new ruler appears human, relatable, honest, compassionate. But make no mistake, every smile, every slogan, every "we're all in this together" is positioning. Power is no longer about domination. It's about direction. Guiding the public's perception so gently they never realize they've been led. If The Prince were written today, its first rule would be this: he who commands attention commands the world. Because attention is energy, it fuels markets, politics, and belief, and the one who captures it becomes godlike. The average citizen sees the internet as a window. The ruler sees it as a mirror. He reflects what people crave to see until they mistake reflection for reality. And that's the essence of modern power. It doesn't conquer nations, it colonizes minds. In the Renaissance, the prince built his palace on a hill, so the city would always look up at him. Today's ruler builds his palace inside your screen, so that wherever you look, he's already there. The new subjects. In Machiavelli's time, rulers ruled through fear, fear of punishment, fear of exile, fear of death. It worked because fear makes people predictable. But the new princes of today learned something subtler. Comfort is even more effective than fear, because fear creates resistance, comfort creates dependence. The subjects of the modern kingdom are not forced to obey, they choose to. They beg to be guided. They surrender their autonomy one convenience at a time. They don't wear chains on their wrists. They hold them in their hands. Every swipe, every tap, every click, a small ritual of submission. They say they want freedom, but what they really crave is ease. Ease of thought, ease of choice, ease of identity. Freedom feels heavy when you've forgotten how to carry it. In the old world, people feared tyrants. Now they fear boredom. They'll sell their attention for entertainment. They'll trade privacy for relevance. They'll abandon integrity for approval, because nothing terrifies the modern mind like feeling invisible. The tyrant of this age doesn't wear a crown. It wears a logo. It gives you comfort while it studies your soul. Machiavelli would smile, not out of cruelty, but because he predicted this truth long before it existed. Men are more easily ruled by what pleases them than by what frightens them. Scroll through any feed, and you'll see the new obedience in motion. The people don't worship gods, they worship algorithms. They don't pray for salvation. They refresh for validation, and they receive it in microdoses, a comment, a like, a notification, small bursts of artificial purpose, each one keeping them loyal to the system that feeds them. They are pacified, not oppressed, distracted, not enslaved, and that makes them the most obedient subjects in history. The modern ruler doesn't need loyalty. He just needs participation. As long as the people keep reacting, he keeps ruling. He doesn't demand silence. He floods the world with noise until silence becomes unbearable. He doesn't suppress rebellion. He absorbs it, turning anger into content and dissent into engagement. Every revolution that begins online ends as analytics in someone's database. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler should keep his people either occupied or fearful. Today, they are both, occupied by the trivial, fearful of irrelevance. Every second of peace feels empty. Every pause feels like death. That's why the modern subject cannot stop scrolling. They confuse motion for meaning, and so they remain forever distracted, impatient, emotional, and easy to influence. The ancient subjects at least knew they were ruled. The modern ones believe they're in control. That's the genius of the new order, to enslave people through their own desires. Give them endless options, and they'll mistake choice for freedom. Keep them connected, and they'll never realize they're isolated. Feed them opinions, and they'll stop forming their own. Machiavelli would recognize it instantly. The perfect government is one that rules without needing to, because power today doesn't march through the streets. It smiles through screens. It gives you exactly what you want, then quietly takes what it needs. It doesn't hide in shadows. It hides in your habits, and as long as those habits feel good, you'll never question who designed them. So when you look around at this modern empire, remember this: no one is holding the whip anymore. The people hold it themselves. They just call it progress. Fear and Love 2.0. In The Prince, Machiavelli asked one of the most controversial questions in history. Is it better to be feared or to be loved? His answer was simple, brutal, and honest. If you cannot be both, it is safer to be feared. But the modern world learned how to blend them, how to rule people through love first, then keep them obedient through the fear of losing it. Today, the most powerful leaders aren't tyrants, they're beloved. They don't force obedience, they inspire it. They build trust, connection, intimacy, then bind their followers with invisible threads of emotional dependence. People will fight tyranny, but they will die for belonging. Look closely. From corporations to influencers to entire governments, every modern ruler begins by saying, "I care about you," and maybe at first they do, but once your loyalty is secured, fear takes over. Fear of exclusion, fear of cancellation, fear of being the outsider in a system that rewards conformity. In the digital age, love and fear are no longer opposites. They are a cycle. The same hand that gives you affection also teaches you to fear its withdrawal. The ancient ruler kept order through punishment. The modern one keeps it through social exile. Public shaming has replaced execution. Silence has replaced exile. A tarnished reputation is now a death sentence, because in a world of perception, to be invisible is to be erased. The fear of being cast out is more powerful than any law. You don't need to silence the people. You just need them, afraid to speak. Machiavelli said, "Men love at their own will, but fear at the will of the prince." In our time, that prince is the system itself. It decides who gets heard and who gets buried, who gets love and who gets fear. It rewards obedience with attention and punishes independence with obscurity. That's why people say they value truth but rarely tell it. Because truth now has a price, and silence feels safer. This is not a conspiracy, it's psychology. Human nature never changed. Only the tools did. We are still the same creatures who crave approval, who fear abandonment, who mistake acceptance for safety. The new rulers know this, and they use it not through violence, but through validation. Give people identity and you can guide them anywhere. Give them something to belong to, and they'll defend their cage as if it were freedom. The duality of fear and love rules every level of life now. In corporations, leaders praise teamwork, but rule through job insecurity. In politics, parties promise hope, but govern through fear of the other side. In relationships, people demand authenticity, but punish honesty. It's the same principle Machiavelli saw in kings and courtiers, only now the palace is global. Fear and love are the twin levers of control, and the balance between them determines who commands the room. Be too soft, and people take advantage. Be too harsh, and they rebel. But when you embody both, warmth and consequence, people follow willingly. That's why the calm, controlled person always wins. They can love deeply, but they can also walk away without flinching. Power isn't loud. It's emotional self-discipline. Machiavelli would call this modern mastery, the art of maintaining closeness without dependency, empathy without weakness, and authority without cruelty. To be loved, but not owned. To be respected, but not feared blindly. To be kind, yet untouchable, because real power, timeless power, doesn't demand devotion, it earns it. Then it guards it carefully with one silent rule. Love freely, but let no one believe your world collapses without them. That's the modern Machiavellian balance, to rule your emotions before anyone else does. Control the narrative. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone who will let himself be deceived." He didn't mean people were stupid. He meant they were human, emotional, hungry for meaning, desperate for stories that make the chaos feel coherent. And the rulers of today, the architects of perception, learn to feed that hunger better than anyone in history. In the old kingdoms, power spoke through swords and sermons. Today, it speaks through narrative. The ruler doesn't conquer territory anymore. He conquers the collective imagination. He doesn't need to control people's actions directly. He just needs to define what those actions mean. If he controls the story, he controls what is right and wrong, what is heroic and shameful, what deserves outrage and what deserves silence. The narrative becomes invisible law. Machiavelli's prince manipulated rumor in the streets. The modern prince manipulates data in the feed. In the digital age, propaganda doesn't march with banners. It scrolls quietly between memes and updates. The lie no longer announces itself. It blends. It uses your humor, your fears, your interests, and shapes them into weapons you don't even notice you're carrying. That's how control feels like freedom, because you think you chose the story yourself. The algorithm is the new throne, and it rules by reflection. It doesn't tell you what to think. It shows you more of what you already believe. Each feed becomes its own miniature kingdom, with its own truth, its own enemies, its own gods. Divide people by narrative, and they'll destroy each other while thinking they're defending virtue. This is not chaos. It's design. Machiavelli advised princes to study the moods of the people. Our new rulers don't need to study. They measure. They know which words make you angry, which images make you afraid, which faces make you click. They know how long you stare, where your eyes hesitate, how your heartbeat changes when you see what you desire. You're not being observed by tyrants. You're being observed by systems. They don't punish disobedience, they predict it. Control today isn't maintained by censorship. It's maintained by flooding. When truth becomes inconvenient, they don't silence it. They drown it. They release 1,000 half-truths until no one knows what's real. They make the population so overwhelmed by noise that apathy becomes the default emotion. You can't rebel against what you can't define. Machiavelli understood this long before the internet. The people are like the sea. They must be stirred to remain calm. Keep them constantly emotional, and they'll never find stillness long enough to think. This is how perception became the new battlefield. Every word you hear, every image you see, every phrase that trends, it all shapes the invisible architecture of belief. In this war, there are no soldiers, only storytellers. And whoever tells the better story wins. The modern ruler doesn't fight his enemies. He reframes them. He doesn't destroy opposition. He defines it. He gives it a label, a tone, a costume, until even the rebels play their assigned roles inside his script. It's Machiavellian genius, refined through centuries. Control the narrative, and you control the opposition too. You can see it everywhere. Politics, media, religion, even self-help and spirituality. Everyone is selling meaning. Everyone is crafting their mythology, and those who understand the psychology of storytelling rise above those who drown in it. To live in this new world without being ruled by it, you must become fluent in narrative. You must ask, who benefits from this story existing? What emotion is it trying to trigger in me? What action does it want me to take next? Once you see the strings, the puppet show loses its power. That's the new literacy of power, the ability to read manipulation as easily as language. Machiavelli would look at the modern world and whisper, "They learned my lessons too well," because he understood something most people still refuse to admit. Human beings do not live by facts. They live by frames. Facts inform, stories move, and emotion decides. If The Prince were written today, its most important law would be this: he who shapes the meaning shapes the world. Because in the end, truth doesn't need to be destroyed, only rewritten. The art of perception. Machiavelli once warned, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." 500 years later, those words have never been more prophetic. Because the modern world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards presentation. Reputation is the new throne, and image, not integrity, is the new crown. In the old world, rulers built castles to project strength. Now people build profiles to project identity. The palace has become the feed. The guards are filters. The banners are bios. And every post is a carefully measured act of political theatre. The weak crave to be seen. The wise understand visibility as a weapon. You don't need to be good, you just need to look consistent. You don't need to be virtuous, only desirable. Because perception shapes reality faster than truth can correct it. And in this age, the performance becomes the person. People don't protect character anymore. They protect branding. And those who master the illusion of authenticity gain more power than those who simply are. Machiavelli never glorified deceit. He just understood human nature. He saw that most people judge with their eyes, not with their minds. And the more chaotic the world becomes, the more they cling to appearances as anchors. That's why the calm, confident mask terrifies people, because it suggests control. Control breeds trust, and trust is the foundation of manipulation. In today's empire of perception, optics are oxygen. Without visibility, you don't exist. But with too much exposure, you burn. The wise learn balance. They show just enough to remain seen, but never enough to be read completely. That's what the modern Machiavellian understands. Mystery is influence. Every industry now runs on perception management. Politics is marketing. Media is theater. Even personal morality has become performance. Virtue is displayed for validation, not conviction. Empathy is filmed for proof, not purpose. Even outrage is curated for engagement. Every human emotion has become a form of content, and in that marketplace of performance, the calm observer becomes king. Machiavelli's prince wore robes and gold. The modern prince wears relatability. He appears humble, human, imperfect, because people no longer trust perfection. So he shows flaws strategically, because vulnerability, when planned, is the purest form of persuasion. That's not deception, that's design. Understand this. Power no longer demands reverence. It demands relatability. People follow what reflects them, not what rules them. That's why perception today is built on mirroring. If you can make someone see themselves in you, they'll trust your every move. But make no mistake, they're not loving you, they're loving their own reflection. Machiavelli saw this truth long before cameras existed. He understood that influence is emotional mimicry, the ability to reflect others so they forget to question your intent. In the digital era, image isn't just what people see, it's what people feel when they see you. That's why charisma often outshines competence. Emotion beats logic. And confidence, even when false, creates its own gravity. People assume composure equals certainty, certainty equals truth, and truth equals power. The art of perception, then, is not about lying. It's about shaping what others believe is true, because humans rarely seek the real, they seek the reassuring. Give them a story that feels right, and they'll defend it against reality itself. Machiavelli would call this the highest form of control, not to force belief, but to let people choose your illusion voluntarily. He'd say, appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious and upright, but be ready to act against all of them if it becomes necessary. In modern terms, be kind, but not naive. Be authentic, but not transparent. Be visible but not predictable, because perception, once mastered, is the most elegant form of power. To live above manipulation in this world, you must stop craving to be seen and start controlling what is seen. When you understand how perception is built, you become immune to those who build it for you. That is the modern mask of the Machiavellian mind. Calm, unreadable, strategic, and always one layer deeper than anyone expects. Hide your intentions. Machiavelli once advised, never reveal the reason for your actions until it is too late for your enemy to oppose you. It wasn't paranoia, it was strategy, because he understood that the moment your plan becomes visible, it becomes vulnerable. And in today's world, everything visible is consumable. Once, secrets were kept in stone chambers. Now they're surrendered voluntarily to platforms, to strangers, to anyone who offers the illusion of connection. We've mistaken exposure for authenticity. We think telling the world what we want makes us brave, but in truth, it just makes us predictable. And the predictable are easy to control. The modern mind confuses expression with power. But expression is leverage. For whoever knows how to use it, every detail you share becomes data. Every plan you announce becomes expectation. Every vulnerability you confess becomes instruction for how to hurt you. Machiavelli would have called it suicide by honesty. In the Renaissance, princes were assassinated with daggers. Today, reputations are assassinated with screenshots. And the weapon is rarely the truth, it's context. Because truth can't destroy you, but truth told at the right time to the wrong audience, in the wrong tone, can. The wise learn this early. You don't owe the world your transparency. You owe it your results. The powerful today move like shadows. They announce nothing yet accomplish everything. They understand that silence generates tension, and tension generates respect. They never beg to be understood. They prefer to be misread. Because mystery breeds caution, and caution breeds control. The more people know about you, the more they think they understand you. Once they believe they understand you, they stop fearing you. The modern world trains you to overshare. It wants your thoughts, your routines, your pain, your plans, because data is the new currency. The more you reveal, the more accurately you can be predicted. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to sell to influence, to defeat. Privacy is now rebellion, silence is resistance, and invisibility is power. Machiavelli's prince would have thrived online, not because he'd post, but because he'd know how to disappear. He'd use perception as camouflage. He'd appear open, approachable, maybe even foolish, so that no one would sense the precision behind his calm. He'd hide intelligence behind simplicity. He'd mask depth with disinterest. He'd win while others tried to prove themselves. Because the strongest move in a world addicted to attention is to withhold it. We live in an age where people show their every move before it's even made. They tell the world what they're building, what they're healing, what they're dreaming, and then wonder why the fire burns out before it ever lights. Exposure kills momentum. Talking drains vision. And every time you explain yourself, you lose a layer of mystery that once protected you. Machiavelli would rewrite it like this today. Make your silence expensive, and your words irreversible. Don't argue, don't explain, don't broadcast. Let your life speak like a well-kept secret. If people misunderstand you, let them. If they underestimate you, perfect. You are not here to be seen clearly. You are here to move silently. The modern Machiavellian knows that restraint is dominance, that not reacting is strategy, that silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. And when you finally do speak, every word hits like a weapon forged in a long and deliberate quiet. To hide your intentions in this age is not cowardice, it's survival, because when everyone is broadcasting, the one who whispers becomes unforgettable. Divide to rule, distract to control. Machiavelli once wrote, "A wise ruler keeps his subjects busy with foreign enemies, so they will not conspire against him." In his time, that meant wars and rumors. In ours, it means content. The modern prince doesn't need armies to divide the people. He just needs distraction, and distraction today is infinite. You don't need to silence a population that can't focus. You don't need to censor ideas that can't survive a 15-second attention span. The system doesn't fear rebellion. It fears clarity, so it drowns it. The new rulers of the digital age discovered something extraordinary. When everyone is busy expressing themselves, no one is thinking. Each outrage cycle, each argument, each trend, another spark thrown into a forest already burning. And the people, they believe they're choosing sides. But in truth, they're just choosing distractions. The power structure no longer needs to suppress conflict, it needs to curate it. Because outrage is profitable and division is predictable. Keep people emotionally reactive, and they'll confuse catharsis for change. They'll pour their energy into pixels and call it revolution. They'll destroy each other online, while the real rulers expand their empires in silence. In Machiavelli's Florence, power was maintained through fear of external enemies. In today's empire, it's maintained through internal fragmentation. We've been trained to see enemies everywhere, in ideology, in race, in gender, in class, in thought. The illusion is that we're fighting for justice. The truth is that we're fighting for distraction, because as long as we're divided, we're harmless. No ruler fears the angry mob. He fears the unified mind. The system doesn't want to silence your voice. It wants to multiply it into noise. Too many opinions, too fast, too shallow, until meaning dissolves and only emotion remains. Because emotion is easier to control than thought. If they can keep you angry, you'll never be analytical. If they can keep you offended, you'll never be strategic. And here's the secret Machiavelli would have admired. The best way to rule the masses is to let them think they're ruling themselves. Let them speak endlessly. Let them debate and divide and moralize, while you quietly build the systems that frame their arguments. The modern ruler doesn't dictate what people believe. He dictates what they believe matters. That's true power, not in steering thoughts, but in steering attention. You can see it in every sphere of life, in politics, left versus right. In culture, this tribe versus that tribe. In spirituality, enlightenment versus ego. In relationships, men versus women. Everywhere, people are choosing sides in invisible games, and the prize for winning is nothing, because the purpose isn't to resolve. The purpose is to consume. Distraction has become the most sophisticated weapon ever invented. It doesn't just waste your time. It rewires your mind. It teaches you to crave stimulation, to chase outrage, to fear silence. And once silence feels unbearable, you will fill it with noise that benefits someone else. Machiavelli would see this and nod. He'd say the rulers of this century have perfected what his generation only began, the art of governing through emotion. The Prince of Florence manipulated the few. The princes of today manipulate everyone, and they don't even need to hide, because we are too distracted to notice. So how do you escape it? By doing the one thing the system cannot monetize, thinking slowly. Don't react to the first emotion that rises. Don't fight every battle they hand you. Don't chase every controversy that trends. Power begins where reaction ends. The less you react, the more you can see. The more you can see, the less you can be used. The modern Machiavellian mind doesn't seek sides. It studies the stage. It doesn't pick a battle. It questions who profits from the war. That is the highest intelligence in a world built on division, to watch the chaos without feeding it, to remain calm in a room full of rage, to think clearly while others perform. Because the moment you stop reacting, you stop being ruled. The new princes. Machiavelli served princes draped in velvet, guarded by soldiers, crowned by divine right. But if he were alive today, he'd see something far more terrifying. Princes without crowns, empires without borders, obedience without awareness. Because the new princes of the modern world wear no armor. They wear identities. They don't conquer nations. They conquer narratives. In the 1500s, power required lineage. Now it requires visibility. The prince is no longer born to rule, he is engineered to, trained in charisma, precision, optics, and psychology. His advisors aren't philosophers, they're data scientists. His weapons aren't swords, they're algorithms. His soldiers are not men, they're the loyal followers who defend his image online without ever meeting him. The battlefield is not Europe. It's your attention span. Machiavelli said a prince should strive to appear virtuous, even if he is not. The new princes turned that into an entire industry. Public virtue is their most profitable illusion. They sell morality as branding. They turn empathy into marketing. They perform compassion to mask ambition. Every apology, every outrage, every tear, carefully calibrated to look human, while serving strategy. Because in a world that no longer trusts leaders, only actors can rule. The new princes run corporations, media empires, platforms and governments that look democratic but behave algorithmically. They don't demand loyalty. They design it. They don't command armies. They own attention. They don't silence critics. They monetize them. Every controversy feeds their reach. Every rival amplifies their brand. Every rebellion is data. That's why they never truly lose, because even your hatred becomes engagement. The genius of the new prince is his invisibility. He exists behind the logos, the trends, the movements. You never see his hand, only his influence. When 1 billion people argue, he listens. When the world polarizes, he profits. He doesn't control opinion. He controls conditions. He builds the environment in which all opinions are formed. That is the highest form of power. Not to tell people what to think, but to limit what they can think about. Machiavelli's prince kept the people busy with foreign wars. The modern one keeps them busy with personal branding. You've been turned into your own propaganda minister, marketing your image, curating your identity, fighting invisible battles for validation that benefit no one but the machine. And while you exhaust yourself maintaining your own illusion, the real rulers, calm, calculating, unseen, keep shaping the stage you perform on. If The Prince were written today, its most unsettling chapter would read, "The perfect ruler is not feared nor loved nor even known. The perfect ruler is trusted by default." Because trust is the final frontier of control. You can fake everything else, but if they trust you, you can lead them anywhere. And in this age, trust is manufactured like a product. These are the new princes, the CEO who speaks of sustainability while exploiting millions, the politician who sells morality but trades it daily, the influencer who preaches authenticity but edits their soul for views, the algorithm that decides what you desire before you even feel it. They are the children of Machiavelli's prophecy, refined, optimized, digitized. And yet the story is not hopeless, because every empire built on illusion depends on one thing staying asleep: your awareness. Machiavelli believed that no system, no ruler, no tyranny can sustain itself when the people understand its design. Once you see the stage, the play stops being magic. That's why the greatest threat to the new princes is not rebellion, it's clarity. They want emotion. You give them silence. They want division. You give them detachment. They want prediction. You give them unpredictability. That is how you win in this new empire, not by overthrowing rulers, but by refusing to be ruled. Machiavelli would call you the modern citizen of power, the one who studies manipulation not to imitate it, but to outgrow it. He'd tell you that real sovereignty isn't about leading others. It's about mastering yourself so completely that no system can absorb you. And when enough people reach that state of mind, the new princes will have no one left to rule. The Machiavelli within you. They told you Machiavelli was a cynic, a manipulator, a man without morals. But the truth is, he was a realist, a mirror held up to human nature. He didn't create corruption, he exposed it. He didn't glorify deceit. He warned that honesty alone cannot survive in a dishonest world. And in doing so, he left behind something far greater than political advice, a map for the self. You've seen how modern rulers operate, through illusion, distraction, and emotional control. But here's the secret Machiavelli would whisper if he stood beside you today. The greatest empire you'll ever rule is the one inside your own mind. Because power, before it ever governs others, must first master the chaos within. Every human carries two forces, the animal that reacts and the ruler that observes. Most people live as the animal. They're driven by impulse, triggered by emotion, tossed between desire and fear like waves in a storm. But the few, the very few, learn to rise above their instincts. They watch their own mind like a strategist watching an army. They see thoughts not as identity, but as information. They choose when to speak, when to strike, when to wait. That is self-governance. That is sovereignty. Machiavelli understood that if you cannot rule yourself, you will be ruled by anyone who can read you. He would say, master your own reactions, and the world loses its grip on you. Because the modern system feeds on predictability, it survives by knowing how you'll respond. Anger, envy, outrage, approval, each one can be measured, provoked, and sold. But when you become unreadable, you become unstoppable. To awaken the Machiavelli within you is not to become manipulative. It's to become aware. Aware of how others play the game. Aware of how emotion disguises itself as morality. Aware of how truth is bent to fit convenience. Awareness isn't cruelty, it's clarity. And clarity is the highest form of compassion, because it allows you to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Understand this. The system doesn't fear rebellion, it feeds on it. What it fears is non-participation, a mind that cannot be baited, a heart that cannot be guilted, a soul that refuses to react on command. That's why awareness is revolutionary. It turns every manipulation into information, every attempt at control into a lesson, every insult into insight. The Machiavelli within you doesn't seek to dominate. It seeks to understand. It studies patterns. It remembers betrayals without resentment. It forgives without forgetting. It calculates without cruelty. It learns the laws of power, not to control others, but to guard peace within itself. Because once you understand how power operates, externally and internally, you stop fighting shadows. You start mastering energy. Machiavelli would remind you that strength and virtue are not opposites, they are siblings. Goodness without intelligence is fragile. Intelligence without goodness is dangerous. The balance of both, that's wisdom. That's the mind of the modern prince, the person who moves through chaos with quiet certainty, who chooses depth over noise, who acts from understanding, not reaction. And when you reach that point, when you can observe your own emotions, stand still in storms, and see manipulation as clearly as sunlight, you realize something. You were never meant to obey. You were meant to perceive, because perception is power, and power, in its purest form, is simply the ability to remain free in a world built to enslave your attention. So when you hear Machiavelli's name again, don't picture a schemer in the shadows. Picture the part of yourself that sees clearly, acts deliberately, and remains calm when others lose their minds. That is the Machiavelli within you, the consciousness that watches the game but no longer plays it. The final warning. The old kings ruled through fear. The new ones rule through distraction. But the wise, the truly wise, rule through awareness. Because when you can see the game, you no longer need to play it. The world will keep spinning its illusions, the feeds, the outrage, the endless noise. Let it. Your power is not in resistance, it's in perception. You don't fight the storm by shouting at the rain. You watch the clouds and move before they break. That's what Machiavelli was trying to teach all along. Not cruelty, not corruption, but strategy. The ability to see the human animal clearly without hating it. The strength to live among illusion without becoming one. And if you've made it this far, you're already part of the few who can. Because understanding power doesn't make you cold, it makes you untouchable. When you stop being controlled by emotion, you start controlling outcomes. When you stop chasing truth, you start embodying it. And when you stop seeking approval, you finally become free. So stay aware, stay patient, stay dangerous, because the calm mind sees everything, and the one who sees everything can never again be ruled. If this message awakened something in you, leave a comment with the line that hit hardest. Let the world see how many still think. And if you're done being distracted, subscribe. Because ShadowMinds Alchemy doesn't exist to entertain you. It exists to arm you against illusion, against weakness, against the systems that feed on the unaware. You are the observer now. The strategist, the unseen variable in a world addicted to noise. Remember, power isn't taken, it's understood. And once you understand, you already have it.